In today's video, I'm going to be preparing some lime rice for my freezer. Now, some people are very worried about reheating rice, but that's not really where the danger lies. The danger lies in letting your rice sit at room temperature for too long. So as long as you cook your rice, cool it immediately in small portions and get it straight into the fridge or freezer. If it's in the fridge, you use it within 48 hours. You will not have any problems. I've done this my whole life and I have not had food poisoning from rice yet. I have had food poisoning from rice, but that's a takeaway situation that I really don't want to revisit here. So we're making a lime rice today. It's very subtly flavored. It's very easy. It's going to freshen up any of your curries or your other rice dishes. You can even use it for stir fry. The best stir fry rice is always cooked and then cooled before use, but I tend to use this one with curries and Asian dishes. So let's get started. Now we're going to start this recipe with spring onions, and we're going to cook these first and then put them back in at the end. I do love an all-in-one recipe. I've experimented with cooking them at the same time as the rice, but just goes very, very soggy indeed. Now I'm making double quantities today, so I'm going to use some basmati rice. This is a quick cook 10-minute rice, and I'm going to use the absorption method. It's much easier than it seems. You don't need a rice cooker. I always just do mine on the stovetop. Works perfectly. So 1 cup of rice is about 3 portions. I'm going to make double today. As I said, I'll put both portions, single and double, in the video description so you can just try this out, see if you like it first. So I'm going to use 1 bunch of spring onions. If you're in America, you may call these scallions or green onions. I'm just going to trim each one and just take off the outside skin. I'll probably give them a little rinse under the tap and dry as well, just to get rid of any dirt. And then I'm going to chop them into small pieces about so big, and we're going to fry these just in a light vegetable oil. I'm going to use an organic rapeseed. That's a canola oil. If you're in the US, you can use anything that doesn't have too much flavor, like a sunflower or even an avocado oil. What we'll do is we'll fry these and then we'll take them off the heat and set them aside. So your onions at this point should be lightly softened. They shouldn't be browned or overcooked. Just cook them until they're barely soft and then take them off the heat and pop them in a little bowl. What I'm going to do next is add a little bit more oil to the pan. We don't need tons of oil for this recipe, a maximum of a couple of teaspoons. I'm going to add a little bit more oil to the pan and I'm going to fry. I've got a couple of bay leaves here and I've got a teaspoon of coriander seeds. Whilst those are frying, I'm going to rinse my rice. I've got 2 cups of basmati rice here and I'll add it to my pan with a proportionate amount of water. So for each cup of rice, you need about 1 2/3 cups of water. Could be anything from 1.5 to 2 cups, something you need to experiment with the rice that you have locally. What we're going to do is we're just going to pop the lid on and we're going to cook this rice part way through. So this is a 10-minute rice, so I'm going to cook it for about 7 minutes. Just to add, as you bring your rice to the boil, you want to add 1 teaspoon of salt. That may seem quite a lot, but don't forget we're making essentially 6 portions here. And then I'm going to turn the heat off and I'm going to place the lid on. If it has a little air vent, then you want to put a clean folded cloth on top of that. So what we're doing then is letting the rice cook the rest of the way just by the steam. Now you may have to adjust this a tiny bit when you get to the end. So if this is a 10-minute rice, I'm going to cook it for 7 minutes, turn off the heat, seal it in. And then I'm going to leave it for another 8 or 10 minutes. Even though that's a longer cooking time than it says on the packet, that's because the end cooking time is just with the steam. After that, you can try your rice. Now don't panic if it's not cooked all the way through. If it's not cooked all the way through, you can add a little bit more water and put the heat on again. Again, with the lid sealed on, just get a little bit more steam in there. If there's any water left, then you can remove the lid and just cook it and let that steam evaporate. You'll soon get used to doing this and you'll find it very easy indeed. Whilst the rice is cooking, we're going to prepare our other ingredients. And I'm going to prepare 2 limes, and we need both the outside, the zest, and we need the juice as well. Now don't juice them before you zest them because it's much easier to do when they're whole and firm like this. So I'm just going to take a small grater and just keep moving around. Try not to get too much of the white. You just want the outside part really. Move around until I've done both of these limes, and then we're going to juice them. Now, grating the skin of limes is a thankless task, and sometimes you just get patches, especially the lighter patches that just kind of squish against the grater and don't want to grate. So just do your best, and once you find yourself losing the will to live, I would suggest giving up on that, and then not living, of course, grating limes. And then what we can do is just cut them in half, and I'm going to squeeze the juice out, which is going to be much, much quicker, and I'm going to pop it into this bowl here. So here's my lime zest and juice. I'm going to set that aside. That'll get stirred into the rice after it's cooked. And here I've got some fresh coriander. So I've got 2 large handfuls of coriander here. And what I'll do is I'll tip this out in a moment and remove the, not all the stalks, but just the largest ones. And then I'll give this a chop. And again, we're going to set this aside ready to be stirred in at the end. So as soon as your rice is cooked, you're going to stir in all your other ingredients. So you're going to put your spring onions back in, you're going to put your lime juice and lime zest in, and you're going to put your coriander in. Now, the second it's done, you want to start portioning it out so that you can keep it. As I said, rice, it's important that it cools really quickly. I've kept one in this bowl here. I'm going to pop this in the fridge as soon as it cools down so I can have it for my dinner later. And the rest are going into little plastic tubs. And the second they are cool or anywhere near cool, they're going into my freezer. As I said, the difficulty with rice is leaving it out at room temperature for too long, not in the reheating of it. So how do we reheat this rice from frozen? Well, there's a couple of options. And I should say at this point that coriander is generally best fresh. So if you're more organized than me, you could leave the coriander out and add that in freshly each time you reheat your rice. But I don't have time, and it's not too bad frozen. So I'm going to pop mine in at the beginning. I live in a village and I can't always get hold of coriander anyway. Now, when you know you're going to eat your rice that evening, just get it out of the freezer. You can pop it in the fridge to defrost. And then you've a couple of options for reheating. My favorite is probably just to pop it into the microwave. So put it in a bowl like this, put a cover on it and microwave it. Sometimes you might want to add a little extra water, maybe a tablespoon of water, just if you feel it's dried out a little. Microwave it until it's piping hot and then it's ready to serve. The other thing I sometimes do is I'll pop it in the oven. So if I have something like a curry that I'm going to reheat in a casserole dish, sometimes what I'll do is put the curry on one side if it's not too liquid. I'll put the rice on the other side, reheat the whole lot in the oven for about 20-25 minutes while I have a shower after training or something like that, and then it's all ready together. Don't forget to label your rice before you pop it in your freezer. Remember, I've made double today, so you only need 1 lime to make this recipe. And I'll put the recipe for 3 portions or 6 portions that I've made today in the description, along with all the instructions for cooking the rice. Now, I use the absorption method for the rice today, and that's because this is a rice that cooks very fast and it's very sticky. It's a white rice, so absorption is best for that sort of rice. If, however, you're doing this recipe with whole grain rice or some wild rice, there's probably nothing wrong with just cooking it in an excess of water and draining it at the end. It won't go soggy because it's got more of that harder coating on. It's the white rices like this that tend to overcook and tend to be too wet. If, like many British people, you just bung a load of water in and rinse it off at the end. Much better to use this absorption method. I've tried steaming as well, but I find that this works best of all. And I've never found the need to buy any kind of device. Once you get used to your particular rice and your particular cooker, you can do it on the stovetop with no problems whatsoever. You can also allow this rice to get cold and then add it to a stir fry. That's another delicious way of using it. And of course, you can take it out of the freezer, leave it to defrost for the day in the fridge, and then use it in a stir fry too. Let me know in the comments if you're going to give this a go. I have lots of other rice recipes as well, which no doubt I'll share with you in due course. Don't forget to subscribe. We also do sewing content on this channel and healthy living. And of course, if you want advice on painting and drawing, you can pop over to my main art channel. I'll leave that and the recipe for today's rice all in the video description. I'll see you again very soon.